Welcome everybody tonight to Let's Talk Scarborough. We're really glad to have you all here. My name is Lucy Norval and I coordinate programming and communications for the library. And tonight we have only the second ever Let's Talk Scarborough program that we've done. Such an important topic about the use of the survey results, the townwide community survey. I want to introduce 4 people to you, and right now the owl is going to show us their images when they speak. So right now the owl is showing us Janice Cohen. So I'm going to introduce Janice first. She is one of the people from Scarborough Community Connections who is doing the interview. And she's a founder and owner of Courageous Leadership Coaching. And Janice has experience as a successful leader in private, public, and nonprofit organizations. Her work as a leadership coach and consultant has continually resulted in her clients' ability to achieve their personal and professional goals, as well as the successful performance of their organizations. In addition to her organizational work, Janice is trained as a facilitator and mediator, and she has facilitated groups in conflict in several Maine communities and the Maine state legislature. Janice believes that people with different viewpoints can work together to benefit the whole when they are brought together in constructive ways. And our next interviewer, also from Scarborough Community Connections, is Dana Morris Jones. Dana, why don't you say hi just so the owl will focus on you?
I'm learning to love the owl.
There you go. Dana's career is always focused on helping people create value out of their differences, whether working with corporations as an organization development consultant, communities, local governments, and nonprofits as a meeting designer and facilitators, or families as a mediator. Dana believes that the best solutions to complex problems come as a result of collaboration. She has a PhD from the University of Wisconsin, and she published a book in 2016 entitled The Power of Difference from Conflict to Collaboration in 5 Steps. Dana's lived in Scarborough since 2002. And we have 2 town councilors with us tonight. John, you want to say hello so the owl will focus on you?
Hello, everyone. Thank you to the library and Lucy and everyone for hosting us tonight. We're happy to be here. Does that work?
That's perfect. John.
You're there.
John is actually the liaison from the town of Scarborough to the library's board of trustees, and he has a strong professional background in financial management and strategic planning, working for both the government and private sector for more than a decade. His term goes from 2020 to 2023, and he's a member of the following committees: Appointments and Negotiations Committee, Finance Committee, and he's the chair of the Communications Committee. And Ken Johnson, Ken, if you can
Mr.
say.
Owl, can I get your attention, Mr. Owl? No, who, Mr. Owl.
There we go. So Ken has seen the town evolve dramatically in his 38 years as a citizen of Scarborough, and he decided it's time to give back to the community as a member of the council. His term goes from 2019 to 2022, and his focus is on long-term plans to rework the tax rate and improve the lives of retiring residents who struggle. And he's focused also on improving communication among officials and residents. And Ken serves on the following committees: Appointments and Negotiations Committee, Communications Committee, Rules and Policies Committee. And so it's in their role on the Communications Committee and the conductors of the town survey that they come to us this evening. And Ken and John, I don't know if you want to tell us anything by way of introduction before Janice and Dana jump in and talk a little bit about why we're here and how we decided to do this session tonight.
I guess we're just really happy to be here and participate and share more information with the community. One of our goals as a council has been to improve communications, and we've done a couple of things. And so I think Ken and I are very happy to be here today to represent ourselves as elected officials, not necessarily representing the position of the town council on any issue, but offer our time and ears and opinions to the community members who want to participate today.
So I'm really happy that you guys agreed to come. And I will tell you, in the 20 years that I've lived in Scarborough, I know that the council has really worked hard to try to get better at communication. You know, nobody ever thinks it's enough, no matter what you do. But one of the things that you guys have started doing is the council corner, which is wonderful. And this little format here, which hopefully we'll have many more of these. And the survey itself, I think, is an example of another way in which you're really trying to create more opportunities for feedback, for engagement, for two-way communication. So I want to start by asking you about the survey itself. Why did you decide to have a survey? What was the purpose?
Want me to do that?
Yeah, you're the godfather of the survey.
Long story short, I mean, what better way to gauge sentiment in the satisfaction or dissatisfaction of items than from a survey, a statistical sound survey. It had been actually 10 years since our last survey. That was a survey done in 2010. It was done by a funded program out of, I think, Washington at the community level. And it was a web-based survey that we posted on the web and asked people to come participate in that. Prior to that, and I do believe there were 300 participants. Prior to that, the first true survey, in my opinion, was in 1999. We engaged, there was a services, cost of services committee set up by the town council. And we hired an outfit to do a survey where they actually mailed a survey to every single home in the town of Scarborough.
Mm.
And at that time, believe it or not, there was, I do believe, 6,500 homes.
Wow.
There are over 10,000 now. But out of that survey fell some very important policy decisions for the town. That we did a lot of rezoning. The GMO, the original GMO, which is our growth management ordinance, actually fell out of that survey because people, again, were concerned with growth. I've been in town since '84. I've heard about growth since 1984. Okay, so it's an ongoing concern. So we actually thought it was time to do another one. And actually, Councilor Jean Marie Caterina in 2018 had actually got some money set aside for a survey at some time down in the future. So councils always change, so the council changes. And when we came on board, we had discussions with it, but then COVID came about, and it was a very tight budget year back in 2019. So we deferred that to the following year. It's actually 20. So we deferred it to the following year. And we plan on doing it every 3 years. We hired an outfit out of Kansas called ETC. They specialize, they're countrywide known, specializing in municipal surveys. So we deferred everything to the experts. And that's how it came about. Been very pleased with the results. And we definitely plan on doing one again, probably in 2024.
Okay, that was one of the questions. So before Janice starts to focus on some of the results, I have one more question just about the kind of technical methodologies. It was done with a sample. So
Yes.
they sent out mailings to people's homes and then people could fill it out online. So my question about that is, how much confidence do you, excuse me, do you have that you can really take the results of the survey and generalize it in any way to the totality of the residents of
I'm going to
Scarborough?
follow up on that one.
I can handle that one.
You go right ahead.
Okay. Well, first, just to add on why doing the survey, like the one thing I want to say specifically about this council, and I'm sure all the other councils will say the same thing, but I think this council in particular really does care about capturing the voice of the residents as best we can. And I think the commitment to the survey is a really great way to do it. As Ken mentioned, it had been many years since we had done something to this scale, to this detail, 7 pages asking across multiple departments, hundreds of questions. Like, we really wanted the opportunity to hear as much from the residents as we could so that we could dig into the results. So when we went with the vendor that we chose, ETS, we really wanted to make sure that they had a methodology that would, give us as best of a representation of Scarborough as we could. Every survey, no matter how great, always has some bias with it. So there's no such thing as a perfect survey unless we send a survey out to all 10,000 homes and got every resident to participate. That's the only way we would know with 100% confidence. But I think through the work that they did and their sampling methodology, I feel pretty confident when you look at the results and the spread of our community members who participated. You can see that across Scarborough, we had pretty good participation. And then when you look at the demographic questions related to Scarborough, we see a lot of alignment in terms of socioeconomic status, race, gender. So it really does match the makeup of our community. So I think I feel pretty confident with how much rigor, the scientific rigor they put behind the survey, that we got very, very good, solid, accurate survey results. My wife is also a survey methodologist, and I was like, tell me, is this right? Is this good? And she was like, it's perfect. And I was like, okay, cool. So
yeah, I'd just like to follow up with that too, if you don't mind. We interviewed several vendors, and we actually would like to have kept it local, but there were certain deficiencies in our local vendors that were outshined by our folks out of Kansas. So their methodology, it's built in, it's got a plus or minus 3% error, margin of error, with a 95% level of confidence. So if you think about that, the results of that survey are not a reflection of who participated in that survey, but it truly is a reflection of the people that live in Scarborough. And I found that to validate a lot of my concerns and a lot of folks that I have spoken with. Now, granted, if you took a subject, let's take our favorite, growth, 74% of the people say it's too much, too fast. I identify with that. I find an awful lot of people identify with that. But the plus or minus 3%, that could be 71%, could be 77%. But it truly, I think we all know, if we live in Scarborough, growth is a hot issue. So.
For sure.
Great. I'm interested that you have done like several surveys before over the years. How does that compare to this one? Is times changed because we have grown, we're much larger than we are? Has the results of what you're hearing now very different than what you heard before previously?
Well, I'll grab that one. The most current one, which was done in 2010. In 2010, I can't remember the population, but it was, I think, a little over 8,000. We're at about 23,000 now. So if you just think of those dynamics, we have a lot of younger folks coming in. And we're actually becoming a very diverse town, which is a good thing. So again, from a snapshot 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I think the sentiment's going to reflect differently only because of the demographics in it. Now, the one we did in 2017 was more of a satisfaction survey. Are you satisfied with the library? Are you satisfied with the school? This one took a little bit different flavor. It was their model was, what is important to you and how satisfied are you? Because I could answer a question of not being too satisfied, but it's not that important to me. Okay? So that was the other part of this vendor we really liked. So we could focus on the things that were very important and very satisfied. That's a good. We still pay attention. We want to maintain that level of service. But the very important, and I'm not very satisfied, that's where we direct our resources. And going through this last budget, I know the budget's not a fun thing to watch, but each one of our department heads brought forward items directly related to the survey and the budget. An example, our police department, was the first Let's Talk Scarborough. He brought forward hiring 2 extra policemen, truly based on the survey, because one of the sore points in our survey were traffic stops or not traffic, traffic stops, speeding, writing ticket. I'm trying to be a little bit politically correct, but that and presence in the neighborhood. And Our Scarborough police are spread pretty thin they do a great job, but with the current resources, there's not enough wiggle room in there to have some police go through. Everybody likes just once in a while to see a policeman drive through their neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was reflected very strongly in our survey. So that was a direct response from our police, public safety, to add 2 new officers to it. We approved the budget for that.
So following up on that, what would you say were the, like, 2 or 3 really positive areas, maybe services of satisfaction, and a couple of areas where people would really like to see some changes and not?
John?
So I would say for the most part, satisfaction was pretty high. Like Scarborough, one of the cool things about this particular survey, which is another reason why we picked this particular vendor, was they do a lot of national and regional benchmarking. So that's really important for us to understand too, right? To know if there is an area of Scarborough where people are relatively dissatisfied. The question I ask is, well, is that normal, or is that, how does that compare? And 58 of the 68 benchmark questions, we scored higher than the national and regional benchmark. So that was one of the key takeaways I think we took from this survey, was that Scarborough is actually doing a very, very good job. Our town staff is phenomenal. I think our town staff scored in like the 90th percentile in terms of satisfaction, when, you know, national benchmarks is around 50.
Yeah.
And so that just goes to show how committed our staff is to serving the community, which was great to see. When it comes to areas to focus on, again, I think those areas, Ken's kind of mentioned a couple. Growth is a continued theme around concerns around growth. There are concerns around sidewalk maintenance and infrastructure, more in the neighborhoods, like making sure that we're keeping roads up to date, sidewalks up to date, and traffic, of course. That's always something that comes up in every survey I think we've done. When did our comprehensive plan work, I think this survey helped validate a lot of the work that we just approved in the comprehensive plan. So I don't think there was anything new. What this did, though, is it helped to better quantify and help us better have data to understand the issue, right? Because with growth, like Ken said, we always hear concerns about growth, but we did this survey and we know at least 2/3 of the residents state that they have concerns about growth, which we didn't have that data point before. And it's kind of compelling when you hear that statement that 2/3 of residents are concerned about growth, which means we need to figure out how do we, you know, educate on what we're doing around growth management, but also take that into consideration as we make decisions surrounding growth. Some other areas that I think we had opportunity, traffic infrastructure, you know, communication was another area that it said the town could do a better job focusing on communication. And as we were talking about before this meeting, communication is really hard. And, you know, we did set a council goal this year based on that result to focus more on communication. And as you mentioned, we're doing the council corner live to try and pilot it. In the survey, we saw that the best way people get their communication is through the leader. And so Ken actually, when he was communications chair, started a relationship with the leader, allowing us a monthly councilor corner in the leader. And this year we've kind of upped that to every other week that we're just posting things in the leader from the council on topics, just to communicate more, knowing that that's a good source. And then, you know, we're constantly looking for better ways to communicate. Speaking of surveys, one of the things we're likely going to do that kind of derived from our Council Corner Live is put a survey together to understand from the community, how do they want to engage with us? What is the best way to engage? Because there are so many ways. This is one way, Council Corner Live is one way, coming to a council meeting and speaking in public comment is another way. There's so many ways to engage, but people are going to engage with how they're comfortable and what they want to get out of it. Some people just want to send us an email and make a statement. Some people really want to have a back and forth conversation, and we want to know, are we missing an opportunity to better engage, or how does the community want to engage and figure that out?
Following on that, what works in terms of hearing for you, hearing from the town people? Is it a email that comes in, or is it this kind of a, like you had with the council corner where the people actually participate? What is it? What do you works for you in terms of what you get from communication?
I think everybody's everybody's communications style and preference is unique, right? And so different people have different ways through which they like to be communicated with. I'm good with email. So if you email the council, I will read every email, and you know, if it's something where there's clearly a question, I'll try and make sure I respond. You know, I wish people would text me more. Like, our numbers are out there online. I'm a big texter. I think that most of us are. That's, you know, it's a very fair way to engage with your elected officials. I've never gotten, I actually did get one text where I put it in the Council Corner in the leader where I said, you can always text me, and put my number in there. I actually got a text from a resident, but I thought it was somebody from the town. So I was going back and forth with her thinking it was a different person. And then I was like, oh wait, this is somebody else who's a resident. So it was nice to like be able to engage quickly in that back and forth and just connect, right?
So electronic communication using whatever we have these days works just as well for you as having somebody just show up, because I think that's one of the barriers. People don't have time to show up, but they feel that's the only way they can have a voice.
Yeah, the one area that I would say I would encourage people to try and move away from, if possible, is posting online in groups. Like, while I personally am always interested to go to those group pages and see what people are saying, just because I like to see the conversations that are happening, you know, doing that in that forum isn't really getting to the council. Like, and I don't think we necessarily should be scouring social media to see what people are saying, but that's just, I'm on my phone all the time and I'm on social media all the time. So I can't help but see something pop up and I'm like, oh, I want to read that thread and see what people are saying. But I really think the best way, or I would say that's probably the least best way to engage with us, is going on social media pages. But if people want to do that, I mean, that's up to them.
You'd rather it be direct.
Yeah.
So
Another item, small item, because I've done it many times myself, is you pick the phone up, you call me either home or send me an email. I'll come out and meet with you. I've done several engagements outside in small settings, walking around a neighborhood, showing me issues or whatever. We're residents like everybody, so we're easily accessible. If email doesn't work, we pick the phone up and call. We'll listen to all of it, and again, come out and meet with you and have a discussion.
Right. So you've already spoken a little bit about how the survey results have influenced some of your decision-making already. I think that's the hardest thing about it, though, is how do you actually take that information and then use it to inform decision-making? And I'll give you a specific example. There's kind of contradictory information as I read it in the survey, because with 66% of people think that multifamily residential development is going much too fast or too fast. And at the same time, you've got only, 54%, no, that's 48% think that the number of, the amount of affordable housing is going too slow. So that's kind of a contradiction. And I think as a decision maker for a municipality, how do you take contradictory information, understanding that not everybody agrees out there, and in fact, not everybody on the council probably agrees. How do you use that to inform decision making?
That specific one has come up for me personally many times, and I think maybe we've even talked about it at the council level about the contradiction between that specific example. And again, like I would say, the survey is a directional tool to help, but what we need to do probably for things like that is conversations like this and really dig into people and say, why would you do that? And my hypothesis when I see that is, when you just look at what's happening in the housing market and how hard it is to find affordable housing, you know, people are struggling to do that. I don't know if they're looking at affordable housing the way we may be from a policy perspective, which has a very specific definition from the state in terms of what affordable housing means. And I think that's worth future follow-up conversations with residents to say, you're saying we don't have enough affordable. What does that really mean to you? Does it really mean you would like to see more multifamily units? Because that's a way to get affordable housing, yet people have said too many multifamily affordable housing units are in Scarborough. So do they mean small, what are those, like tiny houses? Like, would they like to
Tiny
see
houses, right?
like tiny houses? Would that be acceptable, affordable housing? So I think it just requires more digging,
Right.
which like there are going to be contradictory items like that where we're going to have to explore a little bit further.
Just to follow up on that, the survey was 7 pages. There wasn't any real deep dive in any one subject, because that was not what the purpose of the survey was. We actually had planned, and still plan, just we got a little busy with the budget, so, and a lot of us work, so due to juggle it all, time is of the essence. Is that we have actually a thing also called a bot survey,
Mhm.
which is a small survey that we can drill further or deeper down into a subject. That may be a good example of one of the subjects. Implementing that is, we're still in discussions with that. That's why our e-newsletter, if anybody is listening and has friends that are not involved, signed up for the e-news, please do it. By the way, the side note is, I think we're the highest in the state on subscriptions. Scarborough is, we've actually had the state of Maine Municipal look at us, so that we're very good in disseminating the information, but we all know we want more always.
Yeah.
But the bot is something that you would drill down at, because you can't deep dive on 7 pages. 7 pages, we're really pushing the limit anyway. Like when somebody says there's too much traffic, what does that mean?
Right.
But you don't also want to get into analysis paralysis. We understand what traffic means.
Yeah.
If traffic flows smoothly, traffic is less of an item for me.
Yeah.
It's just people trying to get to work, get home to work, or go to school, get back to work, back to school.
But I think that's a good example, traffic, where one of the actions that we're taking, again, as a result of the survey, is redoing our transportation study. So it's I think the last one we did, it was supposed to go through 2025. Things have changed significantly since it was originally done. And so this year in the budget, we authorized to do a new transportation study that will really get into the details and weeds around what are the traffic issues, where are the opportunities.
Where can we fix them?
So that's like another really good example of how we took this survey and are figuring out how can we invest to dig in more to make sure we can better understand what we need to do to best solve some of the feedback and problems that we got from residents.
So I know you have a lot of different committees, and if you take the example of transportation, is there a transportation committee?
Yep.
There is.
Mhm.
How does the council and the committee all work together, and citizens that might not be part of the committee? How does the communication and the decision-making occur so that this committee, what is its role? Is it also representing the community, or is it, experts that happen to know about transportation? Can you speak a little bit about how the committees are used in making decisions?
I think it varies committee to committee, but I would say in general, the committees are resident-run committees that represent specific topic areas like transportation, and some committees have certain expertise in them. The transportation committee is very much filled with experts that care about traffic and transportation, but they also work in that area or have expertise in that area. And same thing on the sustainability committee. I think you have a lot of credentialed people in sustainability. Other committees like the Rec Advisory Board that I also sit on, it's just people who are very interested in recreation within the community and want to make sure that they're bringing different perspectives. Some are seniors, some have kids, some are just active adults and want to see programming that helps, what they value and represent. And so I think the committees are excellent. I think it's one area that we probably underutilize as a council to really have them dig deep. And I think some of that is, as we establish our goals, just making sure we align with the committees on what their goals are and how they can help support some of the council work. But I totally see with that transportation study, the town liaison and myself, making sure that we prioritize that to bring it to the committee, and they help to shape and provide insight and feedback to represent part of the voice of the residents, but also potentially, as we go out and do surveys, we're engaging and bringing that back to the committee to have conversation. One thing that we did this year as an example, last year, or this the past year's budget, we funded a Parks and Facilities Master Plan to go out and really evaluate how things are going and how do we prioritize our parks and facilities infrastructure. So things like Hurt Park at the beach, all of the fields that we have, really just trying to make sure we understand what's the priority from residents. And so following the survey, they actually did a follow-up survey specific to parks and recs to dig more into that, brought it to the committee, had a conversation with the committee. The committee even helped to shape the survey a little bit that ultimately went out. So that's the way the committees are kind of part of some of these solutions as well.
I wonder, it's a question about how you, do you think citizens of Scarborough feel that their interests are taken into consideration and being, so that there's a lot of work that's going on. I'm hearing a lot of studying, a lot of surveys and questions and committees that are engaged. Do you think the citizens understand that and understand that there's a high level of trust in the way decisions are made in the community?
Probably not. Understand that. And that's our bet. Because we do, I don't know how many committees we have, but there's several. And I look at the committees as residents driven. There's always a liaison with them, but we actually request them to do work for us at times. We recently, you've heard the term workforce housing. We actually even have that built into one of our ordinances, but it's not clearly defined. What is workforce housing versus affordable housing? So I do believe we just got a ruling out of, or suggestion out of, I think, our Housing Alliance, one of our committees that has the expertise in there and that did the work and brought that forward for us. We have a lot. I'm on the ANC. We're both on the ANC, so we actually review all the applications of the people that want to fill the slots. With all the committees we have less than a handful of openings. So there's definitely a desire for our citizens to be on these committees. It's another means of engagement, another means to be involved. But does everybody truly understand what the committees do, what their purpose are, and how it all works? No, no, I'm sure they don't.
Yeah.
And to answer your question though about do people feel like they're being heard, right? I think I can speak from my personal experience, right? Like prior to moving to Scarborough, when I lived somewhere else and wasn't as involved in the community, it was kind of like ignorance is bliss. I didn't know what was going on until something happened that maybe impacted me. And then I felt like I wasn't heard because I was being impacted by something I didn't like, not because I wasn't proactive as a resident. And when I moved to Scarborough, I personally decided I wanted to be more involved in community efforts and engage. And that's why I eventually ran for office, because I was like, I want to be at the table, engaged, involved in doing stuff. So I think to be heard, you have to make the decision that you want to be heard and work to be heard. It's not like we are listening. We're actively having our ears out, paying attention, trying to hear what people are saying. But if you're not making your voice heard and you're not joining into the process, I could see how you could feel like you're not being heard because, you have to really be in it to be heard. And we have some very active community members that are very heard. And, I think, sometimes I wish we had more people who are also as engaged. I mean, they're all great in their own right, but it's just like getting more people to be heard.
Good segue. We need to take questions. So opportunity to have people out there right now be heard. So Lucy, what you got?
So far, I don't have any questions that have come into the chat. However, I'm going to remove the spotlight in the room so that we can see the people who are on the call. And so people can raise their hands. We can also, and I see that Nina has a question. So let me just make sure I think everyone is unmuted now, or most people are unmuted. Okay, Nina. You're all set.
Okay, well, thank you. And first of all, I want to really talk about communication. I really appreciate the way the council is doing the Zoom and also the writing in the leader and the counselor corner. I think that's really, really great. Now, my big concern is growth. And I guess 74% are concerned with growth. And in the survey, apparently it was growth and traffic and public transportation and the police visibility. And the growth is, to me, the most important thing. And I would like to ask, well, first of all, the loopholes in the GMO and the zoning ordinance, for instance, the GMO, these exemptions. And in the zoning ordinance, the council is able to change the zones if a developer comes before them and requests to have the zone changed, and the council says, yes, this has happened at the Highland Avenue. And that's 17 more acres that are going to be taken up with housing. And my question is, what is the council really doing to control growth? And it seems to me when I go to the planning board meetings or I go to the zoning board or the council meetings, the developers come up and it's just like, it's a field day and they're having a wonderful time and the council goes along with it. So what exactly can the council do to control this growth? Now, one last thing, and then I'll be quiet. For instance, the traffic. Now, today at 3:30, I drove from Oak Hill and the traffic was lined up all the way down to the Eastern Marsh Road. And the other day I was driving and the traffic was from Oak Hill all the way down to the Little Dolphin Nursery. Now that's a lot of traffic and we don't even have the summer people here. So my question is, what is the council doing to control growth? And I thank you very much. And this is really very, very wonderful that you are opening up to the community to ask questions. So thank you so much.
You want to handle that one?
I'll start with this one. Thank you for the question. It's a topic all by itself. I understand there's a concern about growth, but there's some misinformation out there that I just find it the need to correct. The GMO is a little bit more than a year old, and that's to help us manage the pace of the growth. But in the GMO, there's actually an exception clause. It's called council permits. And that's where if a developer comes forward that has a special exception based on their definition, they come for the council and we ask them to prove to us what there's a public benefit if we do grant you this exception outside GMO. This year alone, we're in the middle of June right now. There have been 53 permits pulled in the state in the town of Scarborough. That's well under the 144. We have a couple folks that are coming forward wanting us to grant an exception. Decisions have not been made on that yet. Process is still going forward. I have personally as a counselor, I've not decided on either one of them. I'm still gathering the facts. So I understand the perception of the growth because there has been a lot of growth, but our new GMO is coming in on the tail end of what's been going on over a lot of years. And it's going to take a little while for us to level that out a little bit. There are certain prior agreements with certain developers that are in writing, contractual, that were made by prior councils that I am not going to challenge or criticize. I was not there at the time. And my generation is I honor agreements. I might inherit agreement, I'm going to honor it, but I'm going to do my best to probably make it as best I can for the time period that we're in. But the council is extremely aware of the growth concern in the town of Scarborough. So all I could say to you is just keep an eye on it.
I want to follow up a little bit. My own curiosity, but I think it would further inform this discussion about exceptions and this idea of public benefit.
Yes,
So that's a squishy
it is.
notion.
Yep.
How do you define that? How does the council talk about that?
Well, that's always, now, public benefit is not defined, it's very subjective. So it's a case by case basis. So if somebody says, I want an exception, and I think I can offer a public benefit, then we just as a council supposed to be having an open mind, says, well, talk to us about it, show us what that is. And then we'll make a decision on that exception based on the public benefit. It really is that simple. And we try to make it as transparent as
Yeah.
possible. There are no backroom deals with any developers or anything done in the council. Everything is upfront. We try to have several workshops, so it's exposed, everything is recorded. But true, public benefit it's subjective.
Well, I think that's where, whenever it comes to just making decisions, and I think you and I maybe had a conversation about this
Mhm,
at one point about
We did.
trade-offs,
We did.
because it's really about trying to determine, is the benefit worth the reward or the risk of what that could mean for the community. So like, as we evaluate certain exemptions that are coming forward for housing, to me, it's really, what is the benefit we're going to be receiving as a community? And do I feel like those benefits, as they're articulated, demonstrate a value that I think residents will feel is worth the pace of growth?
Mm.
If the answer to that is no, then I would vote no. If the answer to that is
Right.
maybe or yes, I would vote yes. But I think that's where it's so important when we get to that decision, we present that information to the community as an objective way as we can to say,
Yeah.
here's what's being offered, here's what it means to you. We need you to tell us,
Right.
do you feel like this is worth it for Scarborough?
Yeah.
And to me, ultimately, that's going to help shape my decision, even if I don't agree with,
Personally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, ultimately, I think we're here, at least this is my philosophy, we're here to represent the community first and foremost.
Right.
I wasn't elected because of, certain characteristics about myself. Other than that, I think people elected me thinking I would represent them and listen to them. And so I think as we make these decisions, it's just super important that everybody take the time to understand, and we need to take the time to educate too,
Right.
to show that we're showing our due diligence to understand the trade-offs.
Part of the problem, as we've already talked about, is that when you talk about the residents, the community, it's not one voice.
Yeah.
The community itself may be very divided.
Correct.
So then you got to figure that out. I'll just say before we go back to some more questions, our plan for the next program, we hope, is going to be specifically on growth. And it's
Good.
going to have people speaking for both.
For growth and against growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to make it so black and white because it's very complex and there's a lot of people in the middle. But really to elevate what's really going on and
Yeah.
what do people really feel
And
about it.
before you leave that, let me, because this is an issue with me. I ran on growth. And really, just to keep it simple, because I'm a simple person, is I really feel that I was elected to represent people.
Yeah.
They elected me to do the work. I guarantee you, I do 20, 25 hours a week on the council. And I dig very deep. I understand the history of the growth, the request of the current growth, everything in that. And I benchmark then the hearings that I get from the residents, the survey included, to make a reasonable, rational decision. Understandably, sometimes that's going to go across, against what the general public wants. It's not that I know better. It's just, there's a lot, no decision is decidable. It really isn't. They're complex.
And just to circle back to Nina's question about what can we do to manage growth? I do think personally, like this year with the GMO, it's kind of like its pilot year.
Yeah.
And we got to let it run its course. But I think that still is a tool that we can use that we may need to revisit from a policy perspective
Mhm.
to see after this year of learning, what have we learned and what do we need to change as a result?
Right.
I personally was always a little uncomfortable with the council exemption. And I think that's created some challenge, not only for us from a process perspective, because we don't necessarily have a clear-cut process that we've been able to adequately communicate to the community. And I think without being able to be clear, I think it's left people either making assumptions or not having information. And the fact is we don't have the necessarily to communicate. And so I think that was kind of, that for me has been a lessons learned that, you know, we could have done more at the beginning to better set clear process and how the decision-making process works around this exemption. And I think, unfortunately, with some of the ones that have come forward, we haven't really been as buttoned up as we could and should.
Nina's got another question.
I hate to be so vocal, but the other question I was just interested in, and this is certainly not with any accusation or anything, it's just that the world is, or our country is so politically divided. I was curious about the town council in making deliberations and decisions. Does politics come into it? Are there divisions because someone is one party or the other party? I just was curious about that.
No,
No, good. Well, that's good news. That's
no,
good.
actually, if you look at the bios on all the council, there is no party affiliation.
Well,
I would
that's
say-
good. I'm glad to hear that.
I would say in general, we definitely keep party politics out of
Right.
decision making, but I mean, there are people who lean certain ways, and you know, I think that's actually okay, right? I think we should embrace differences and make sure that we have a good representation of voices at the table. I think what we would want to avoid is groupthink, where we have everybody
Right.
who's on the council who all thinks and
Absolutely.
believes the same thing. And so healthy conflict, I think, is good and welcome. You know, I think maybe in some cases we're all a little too polite sometimes and not necessarily, you know, having the conversations that we
Almost
have.
all of us.
Yeah, some of us less than others. I mean, I'm guilty of being maybe more polite or more accommodating than maybe I could and should be. Where again, you know, we're sometimes we're in these meetings with being recorded. Like I'm not used to that, so
Right.
it's uncomfortable
And you
for me.
forget,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forget.
Well, I feel like I've matured because when I first started, I was like afraid to talk, and now I know the owl's there, but before I would be more anxious about it. But now I'm like, oh, it's there, it's fine, it's normal. But I think I
Yeah.
could see us being a little bit more direct and frank, and I think generally we are. But I feel like we could do that more for the public to see.
Let me tell you what good thing about the survey to me is after you're on the council for a while, you make an awful lot of decisions. And we as humans, it's human nature to look at an item or an issue in front of you through your own personal lens.
Right.
But you're not there to serve you as a
Right.
person. You are there representing the people. I know that may sound like a cliche, but that's truly the way I feel.
Mhm.
So this one, and we don't always address kitchen table topics that, you know, you have discussions with your friends. So you have a sense of what other people feel. We, especially now, we've got some pretty tough things coming over the transit we have to talk about. So this survey, to me, really validated, to me personally, a lot of the way that I've been voting. Because I do, initially, you always look at it from your personal lens, then you step back and go, how about the people? So I pick the phone up, I call people, I go out, I meet people, but that's, you know, you can only do that to so many people between
Sure.
decision time. So the survey to me is that's why it's such a valuable tool. Because when in doubt, or if I feel I'm off base a little bit or something, I go right back to the survey.
Yeah.
Then I'll pick the phone up and stuff and call people.
Were either of you aware of the dissatisfaction with the rate of growth prior to the survey?
Oh, yes.
So this kind of just confirmed.
It did, and I'm gonna plug this in. Now, we hired a vendor who's an expert, and they have done this 1,000 times. So we took their base of questions as a template, but then we put in our own. We went out to the library, we actually asked them from a prior survey, hey, here, library related, do you want to pull this into the survey, add, delete, or whatever? So we got input from the library and from the school. And then we as a committee met a dozen times with the vendor. And we wanted to throw in some very specific questions. One of them was growth. And that's why we knew it wasn't a deep dive. That's why it was multifamily, single phone.
Right.
We knew it wasn't a deep dive, but we knew we could get a sense of growth in general.
Yeah.
Hey, if you don't like single family, that's too fast. You don't like multifamily, that's too fast.
Right.
But the one that you feel is contrary, I just, the way I view that is a little different. Regardless of the growth, people definitely understand it's too expensive to live in the town of Scarborough.
Yeah.
Anybody that's got children, I just scratch my head how young folks can move into the
Yeah.
town of Scarborough. And I think, from my perspective, that's how a lot of people answered that question.
Yeah.
We're not doing enough for affordability.
Yeah. Just
Sure.
speaking for myself as a, younger family, we could not live in Scarborough today if we didn't move here 5 years ago. Like,
Mhm.
we kind of came in at the right time and broke in. And now houses in our neighborhood are selling almost double what we purchased back in 2016.
Yeah.
And so when I think of affordable, that's what I think of. I
Right.
think of like certain people with certain types of lifestyles or incomes being able to have that American dream, that single family home with a backyard. Like, I agree with you. I think that's how people kind of looked at that. Again, we need to dig in and ask
Right.
and make sure, but like, that's what I think when people said affordability. I don't think they're thinking we want more apartments that, technically do create affordability, but it's not the affordability that I think the residents are meaning when they say housing's not affordable, but we need to validate that.
I think,
You also have.
Several questions now.
natural problem.
Oh, good.
good.
oh, we have questions.
We
Great.
do. We have three. The first one is the town manager and council chair are perceived by many to be pro-growth. I understand they're negotiating a contract with the Downs. What is the town benefit that will be used to pass this exception?
I'm gonna tread lightly on that one. And I don't mean that in a bad sense. I'm sorry. See, we're live, recorded, can't take it back. I just wanted to address, there's no negotiating a contract with anybody. And that's what I mean about a little bit of misinformation, disinformation, and unfortunately, some of that is intentional by certain groups in the town. Part of the exemption request that came from the Downs included a promise to do something. No decision's been made on that. But we, as a council, wanted some type of mechanism to ensure if you promise you're going to deliver something, how do we feel comfortable that? So only things being negotiated right now or discussed, negotiation, probably too strong a word, are performance guarantees. This is what you told us to do. Well, how do we quantify that? How do we qualify that? That's all the discussions are. So I just wanted to correct the record on that. There is no negotiation. There's discussion.
Well, and I would just add, I think what we've heard, and I'm sure we'll get an update tomorrow by the town manager and the town manager update, that we're hoping to have some sort of workshop as soon as we're ready, when details are available, because we're not.
Yeah, because we don't have them.
Yeah, we don't have them yet. And again, I think once those details are available, they'll be shared with us, they'll be shared with the public. And I think, and just in talking with the chair, what he's really hoping is we use that kind of first step as the opportunity to talk more about process and what's the process we want to go through now that we have the information to better engage the public, to get input. Even at our last meeting, for next week, we have a Councilor Corner Live, and the topic is on conservation and sustainability. And he actually suggested maybe we have the topic be on the Downs exemption in particular. And I had suggested, well, let's wait till we have the information so that we can bring that to the public, because at this point, we don't have the trade-offs to discuss with the public to be able to have a conversation around, these are the benefits, these are the costs. What do you think, residents? Is this something you're supportive of? And so until we have that, I think there's a desire to engage the public as much as we can and find that right process. We haven't figured out what it is yet, but I think that would be the intent once we know the details, is to say, how do we bring the public along in the decision making on this?
And
Can
you
you,
talked about, oh, go
can you
ahead.
say more about what was the promise that came from the Downs?
So there was, we did, I forget which council meeting it was, but there was a motion that enabled the town manager to engage with the Downs to establish terms. And in that particular motion, there were very specific items that were qualified, that those would be part of the conversation. Part of it was performance guarantees, part of it was
Public benefit.
land, potential land for a school use or a community center. So I think there were some very specific things outlined as like the starting point for conversation. And then since then, the town manager, authorized by the town council, has been working directly with the Downs to see if they can come to conclusion on something. And even in the process, you know, the town manager, I think, has been transparent in that, you know, if he feels like something isn't going to come forward that is going to be, you know, something that the council will entertain, he's going to keep working with the developer until he gets there. So he's not just going to bring us something and say, you know, this is the best I could do. He's trying to do his best to represent the town and make sure that the public is getting the benefit. So it's really, we're going to have to wait and see what comes to us when it's ready to be able to kind of make that judgment.
So the council is really representing the people.
Yeah.
So you're on the hot seat, right?
Right.
And the town manager and staff are responsible to you, right? So
Correct.
there is you need to be able to communicate to the town manager what it is you want, and that's based on what you're hearing. And I'm just saying that to be clear, because I think sometimes people don't understand what the relationships are.
That's correct.
Who are we holding responsible for hearing what we want and communicating with us and making the decisions?
Yeah, and back to that subject, and that's correct. It's not everybody does understand that the town manager reports to the town council. We report to the people. Manager reports to town council.
The other problem is, I think as the questions have indicated and your responses to, the process is not cut and dried by any means. The process is kind of sloppy and all over the place. And so what happens is people feel, because they don't see the process, they don't know what the process is, and it's really hard for you guys to say, okay, we're having this meeting to decide this and this meeting to decide this. It's not that clear. In the absence of that kind of information, people go into their own heads.
Yep.
And they create their own perceptions.
That's correct.
And
it's
What do
because
you do
this
about that?
item, specific item, is very early in the process. So we
Yeah.
have not defined the meetings, the workshops.
Yeah.
Which the public, like John mentioned, the town manager is having discussions. We gave a directive to the town manager. Okay, so we're assuming that directive is being followed.
right,
But we don't have the time in the day to deal with all the details. We're hoping what comes back is a result of the directive and some discussion with the developers.
Yeah. And the one thing that the GMO did that I appreciate is that for any exemption, it requires a supermajority, so it's not a standard
Correct.
majority. So if,
That's a 5-2.
yeah, so
Hmm.
we really need, like,
I didn't know that.
and so again, I think at least for this exemption, it's gonna to convince 5 people to vote yes is a high bar, I
Yes,
think,
it is.
at this point. So,
And I don't know, I usually in the contracts with developers, you have penalties for non-performance penalties. I'm assuming those are part of the negotiation too. I think the public gets a little more confidence if they know there's some, somebody's gonna be held accountable for what
Yeah,
is
we don't know
agreed
that
to.
yet. but you're
You
right.
don't know yet.
Not to detract too much, because I think we should have a separate item just on the
I
downs.
agree.
We plan on having a council live on the downs. That's the plan.
Mhm.
We're hoping it will come to it. Because there's an awful lot of history to this This has been around since 2017.
Yeah.
People are just hearing about it now and they think it just fell out of the sky and everybody's just pandering to a developer. No, this is all in writing, agreed, signed upon, came through a public process and everything. And now we're at a point in this development side that things are now surfacing, but they're not new. And we fail to communicate that because we don't know how to communicate that.
Yeah.
It is thousands of pages of documents, hundreds of hours of it, maybe not hundreds, but many, many hours of video that you would have to watch to understand the history of this.
Well, and the only caveat I would say to that is that there is a lot of history, but what is before us is new in that the timing in which they want to grow is much sooner and faster than what was originally brought forward in
That's
that
correct.
history. And I know when I participated in the Let's Talk America that Sam
That's
Kelly
right.
hosted, somebody actually brought a flyer that they got in the mail when the Downs first came, and it said up to 2,000 units, but like was definitely more by like 20XX, not
Right.
by 2025 or earlier. And so now what's before us is like a real decision to make about what's the right timing for that
Right.
pace, and can the town, the schools, the community absorb that? And is the benefit that's going to come before us in the community worth
The acceleration.
the acceleration? And I think that's the ultimate question
Yeah.
that we're going to need to work with the public to better understand their perspective is that acceleration, given the benefit, worth it? And we have to do a good job to articulate what that is or what it isn't.
And right now, your community is saying no, too much growth, and you're trying. So you're in a very hot seat right now about whether or not you agree to an exemption, what that
It definitely is
exemption ends
not
up looking
unique to
like.
Scarborough. Growth
Oh,
is
absolutely.
across the country, especially now, especially since COVID. We absorbed tens of thousands of new residents from COVID into the state of Maine, and everybody's looking for a place to live.
Yeah, that's right. No,
And
it
we
is across the
can't send them
country.
all away.
That's right.
Yeah, and I
It is
think
across the country.
Say thank you very much,
the
but
point that I hear often that I always forget about, because again, it's very easy to say growth in Scarborough, but like you said, growth is happening all around us. And so the traffic issues on Route 1, which is the biggest pain point,
Right.
isn't necessarily all driven by Scarborough
Right.
growth. It's coming from Saco and Biddeford and everybody traveling up north up Route 1 to avoid the tolls on the highway. And so there's things surrounding us too that influence what people locally are feeling. And I think our hands are a little bit more tied with what we can direct other towns to do.
just as a side note, that's an interesting
Yeah.
point. Again, the average person knows this. We did a study not too long ago. 30% of the traffic on Route 1 are people to avoid the $1.50 on the
On the
turnpike.
top.
They will get, instead of jumping on a turnpike, go to Biddeford for $1.50, they'll spend 35 minutes on Route 1. That's just a fact. That's 30%. Imagine if you could net out 30% of the traffic on
Yeah.
Route 1. Well, there might be a way to do that. People get a hold of their representatives and ask them to bring, we used to have a discount pass because I used to have to go to CMP up to work every day. I think I paid 60 cents versus the whatever it was
Right.
at that time. And the state took that away. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but it's not
We
all
have-
growth related.
We have a couple more questions. One that I'm going to read to you, and then Walt, you've been very patient with your hand up. You have the next question. But before that, we have a question from someone who says, I'm very concerned about walkability and bike rideability in town, especially near the Oak Hill area. Were there other survey responders that felt the same? And PS, we couldn't afford to move here now either.
Yeah. So I think that's part of the challenge. We have to balance, as we grow, how do we ensure we're continuing to also invest in our current infrastructure? Because that's going to be costly too, right? So I think that's part of the balance of, let's not forget, we already have established neighborhoods, established roads with needs. We can't, if that means focusing all of our effort and resource on the Downs, that could be a potential trade-off that the community is going to have to understand is like, hey, if we're focusing our resources more on this part of Scarborough, that's going to come at a cost of not doing it elsewhere. And are people okay with that? And so I think we don't typically, like, surprisingly, at least for me, I don't feel like we get a lot of stuff directly from residents concerned about like sidewalks or like local infrastructure. The survey was clearly called out, but rarely do we get
Like emails. or something.
yeah, emails or anything saying,
There was an item about walking trails and biking trails being something that was wanted more.
Well,
of.
as a tidbit, little tidbit, we just came through the budget process. By the way, June 14th, get out and vote. Well over $1 million directly related to the survey in the walkability area and road structures. Actually, a brand new snowplow machine to plow more sidewalk area, which I complain about because I'm a dog walker and I do it 12 months out of the year. So I mean, that's good. And we do have sidewalk enhancements. Another topic of discussion is sometimes is that TMP out of the Downs. There's $13 million worth of road improvements. A lot of that is some sidewalk structure, widening of the roads. I went down Payne Road today. Really took me back. They're widening Payne Road. There's significant work going on the Payne Road. All that's being done because of the TMP. Now, granted, it doesn't stop the traffic, okay, but the traffic flows more efficiently. It's less of an impact on your life because again, it's just people trying to get from work to home, school to home, stuff like that.
yeah, I would like to see us as a community, and I'm assuming this will be part of the conversation at our Councilor Corner Live next week when we talk more about conservation and sustainability, like thinking about public transportation and biking and things like that within the community. Public transportation, as I've learned, there has to be a demand for it. Otherwise, the public transport companies aren't going to come and service us. And so I think that's going to be a challenge, but I mean, that's a great way to, alleviate less cars on the road. Like the way you can address traffic is either you widen the roads, which we're not going to widen Route 1, or you get less people doing things like carpooling or other things. So, I think we have to think of both, especially as we want to address the traffic stuff. And that's the type of stuff that the transportation committee, I've learned sitting on there with all these really smart people who are, I think they call themselves transpo nerds or something sometimes, like, because they like love this stuff. And it's like, they're always thinking about it. And those are the types of people we need to help us and bring policy to us and suggestions to us that help, address some of the challenges that we have.
Lucy?
Thank you. Walter has a question.
Well, it's not a question, but I'll try to make it as clear as I can. So my dad had two things that he always said to me when I was growing up about an issue like this. He'd say, well, life is very complex. And I think I wish I had a quarter of Sam's knowledge. He says he's been studying the town growth and what's happened over many, many years. And it's certainly obvious to me that growth is happening. And it's happened it seems like the growth is happening very fast. I think some of this is in the just out of control of this community. It's because there's such overwhelming demand, as has been said by other speakers, for people coming to Maine, wanting to move to Maine. And as far as I know, there's a lot of towns in Cumberland County where there's not a lot of buildable land. I mean, Scarborough, if I understand it correctly, has the most acreage in Cumberland County. And so it's just too tempting. People want to move here. I don't think there's a lot of buildable land, for example, in Cape Elizabeth or Falmouth or Yarmouth, but there is in Saco and Biddeford and here, and maybe some other places. And a lot of people are coming here to raise families, like John, some are coming to retire. So there's this in the background, there's a tremendous pressure, and people want to move here and developers want to build for the obvious reasons. But I think that the question, and John alluded to it when he was talking, is that there's two things that I would like to see more of. It's too vague a term for me, growth. We're against growth. It's like how fast is the growth? So the speed of growth, what the growth is, what's being built and what's not being built. And the other part is transparency. Because, and I think it's not so easy I'm just now speaking to the town council. You're a group of what, 6 or 7 people on the council? I'm not sure of the number. And then you have a town manager, and then you have thousands of Scarborough residents. And so how do you make your decision process more transparent or more clear to the community? Maybe I just haven't been looking enough, but I think that's my frustration, because things happen and it seems like you're not sure why. One more little quick thing I would add. I find it, just because people brought up the traffic and people don't want to pay $1.50 extra to go to Biddeford. Just think about this for a second. With gas at $5 a gallon, how much fuel we are all wasting, and how much what we're doing to the environment with people, in bumper to bumper traffic for an hour and a half every day. It seems like, I'm sure that $1.50 is less than a third of a gallon of gas, and it's like I think we need some help with the state on this. I've felt for a long time, it is a parking lot in the morning and in the evening, and anybody who lives here doesn't go out during that times. Okay, well, I said a lot of different things, so I'll stop.
I think the one thing you said, Walter, that I think is like hard, and it's hard, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to like figure it out. And I think the council's committed to is,
Good evening.
how do we make the decision process more transparent? Like, I think that's
Right.
I think we try our best, and it might not always come across that way. And I think as we commit more to communication and forums like this, I think it's one way we're trying to be a little bit more transparent. But again, unless you're like following us, like we're participating in at all of our meetings, you're gonna miss something.
Right.
And even sometimes I think we miss things in meetings that we're in, or we forget because it's so much information being thrown at you all the time. So I think there's a desire to solve that as best we can, but I don't know if it's solvable, but we need to figure out ways to do better than we're doing today.
And the only thing I want to add to that is, because when I hear the term transparent, that means not everything is above board in front of the public. So I want to make sure everybody understands there are no discussions by the town council outside in front of the public. If you don't believe me, watch some of our meetings, because they can be awkward, especially with me on the council. Because we get together as a group of 7 people and we talk about a subject for the very first time in public. Try that experiment at home with friends. Invite 6 people over, pull out of a bucket just a topic, throw it on the table and have a discussion and see how challenging that can be. But anyway, I digress for a second. Everything is transparent. It's unfortunate that in the process, you have to be involved to see it. A good thing, one of the things that fell out of the COVID thing was our hybrid model, and everything is recorded.
Mhm.
So even if you can't be there that day, that time, we have a very good website. You can go in and go town council meetings, topic, click on it and watch it on a rainy Saturday. Because you'll see what everybody else saw, and you'll see the discussions, again, fully
Yeah.
transparent in front of the public.
Can I just add though, like one thing that we've done really well with Allison as the director of communications and engagement, if you go on the website, every time there's like a big project or big decisions, she's always creating a project page where we're posting all of that information. So if you're not in all the meetings and you don't get all the information, we're at least trying to make it more accessible, easier. Like the down stuff is all up there. There's stuff on there on the TNP. Like there's all kinds of like special websites we're trying to build to
We
just
have a
make it easy.
real-time GMO. It's real time. How many things are being built at the town of Scarborough, real time? So you can click in there and see. I'll tell you right now, I think as of yesterday morning, 53 permits have been issued out of 144. You can see how many bedrooms, where they're located, who's building. Fully transparent, and it's real time.
I think one of the challenges is trying to take the complexity and make it digestible for the
Right.
person. It's hard for you sitting there and getting all that information, but how do you make it digestible to the point where they sense they know what's going on, and if they need to
Right.
follow up or are motivated, will do so, but at least you've got it out there. And that's challenges, that's
Yeah.
it is.
Now, a little tidbit time, and I know, I mean, I work all day. Last thing I want to do is sit home after a long day's work, go to the town website, go, what's going on?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we try to make it a little easier. You can actually go to our website now and go, stay connected. There's an area called Stay Connected. And then that you can subscribe to our e-newsletter, which is a fantastic newsletter. It comes out right to your inbox with no, just town news, no soliciting or anything like that. But you can also subscribe to certain committees, town committees, okay, not resident committees, like the planning board, like the zoning board. Every piece of growth that goes through this town starts at the planning board. So all you have to do is sign up for that. The minute an agenda hits the website, you get an email, you click on it, and you can read what's going on in the plan department. So you don't have to sit down and try to find out what's going on. It will be delivered to you. We're trying our best to try to make things as easy as possible. We understand people want to know things when they want to know things. It's very hard. I told them, when I retire, I may become the new town crier, ride around on my bicycle. You know, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. You know, we'll try anything. to
I
get
will
people informed.
definitely testify that the website is much easier to use than it was, much user friendly.
And this is sort of a kind of a learning experience in that the website has improved. I think the various ways that you try and communicate is great. And yet people are saying, but too much growth. So the question is, you know, how do you, is being just communicating and people feeling engaged enough if they don't want something to happen, you know, if they're not happy, and you know, it's a reaction, it's not a planning, it's a reaction to what's happening. And I don't know if you can completely avoid that, except trying to stay aware of what are the hot topics.
That's right.
You know, and this is where we have to put our energy. in the
I just,
community.
yeah, I think we have one more question with, I think Sam has had his hand up for a while.
I've been following this, for a couple of years type of thing. But at this point in time, how many units have been built at the Scarborough Downs facility? Okay, how many units have been built right now? And let's just assume, say, 3 people per unit type of thing. We'll pick as a figure to use, just see how many people we're adding. Then what was, it's already been built, what has been approved but not built at this point in time. What, now David Miley has a big project that's been sort of put on hold. He's built like 1/3 of his facility. So 2/3, he's asking that to be built. How much more will that add? Plus, how many more people are added on an annual basis in other developments in town, et cetera. Just to give us an idea of the potential growth of Scarborough Downs, plus the David Miley project, plus the additional projects here in Scarborough. Is there a figure for that?
We have a figure on that, but don't have it at my fingertips.
Approximately.
I mean, I think it's a great question, Sam, and I think it's a data point we need to help inform decisions. And I think one of the things, it almost kind of goes back to, I think, Dana, some of what you were saying about as we dig into the survey and better understand what people mean and how they define things, like we need to start to build a view and forecast out the future and better understand what the implications are if we go too fast with the population. I don't think we've done like population analysis like that. I think we kind of have ideas around development numbers, but I think that's something as a community we need to understand better, because, you know, 1,000 people a year, is that too fast, or is that okay compared to like 5,000 people a year? So, which, not that we're doing either of those, So don't quote me on that, but like, I think we need to understand that
Yeah.
to determine what the impact is, because, you know,
Well,
the down unfortunately is getting the brunt of the growth because they're so visible. But like you said, there's so much other growth happening in our community. We have a lot of, you know, retirees who are moving out of the community, and people who are replacing them are young families that have 5 or 6 people in their family. So, I mean, we also got to look at that. We're a very transient community right now, given the aging population. And that's also going to change our population numbers. It's going to impact the school. And so we have to be thinking about that as well.
Yeah, Sam, I'll tell you, the closest thing that I could think of, Dash, to tell you maybe to look at, I can get a hold of you and get you a link, is that we get a yearly update from the Downs.
Oh.
And it tells us how many single-family homes, how many one-bedroom homes, how many two-bedroom homes. So we know in a one-bedroom home, you typically either have one no more than 2. Two-bedroom homes, you typically have 2, very few children, and that's confirmed by our school, because we actually have the school knows where the kids are coming from.
Right.
So we have analytics on that too. So there are units in the Downs. I don't have the total number of units, but majority of the growth in the Downs is not family driven. Doesn't mean there's not an impact. We have very extensive cost to serve models for the Downs. The cost to serve includes using the library, calling 911, getting on the road, using the schools. We have all that analysis at our fingertips. All that is discussed when somebody comes forward for an extension.
Yeah.
So we don't do it in a vacuum. Believe it or not, we really don't do it in a vacuum.
Well, I just did go online as we were talking here, and according to online information, the population in Scarborough in 2018 was 20,352, and as of April 1st this year, in April 1st, 2020, it went up to 22,135. Just wanted to make the point. I mean, you know, again, it went up 2,000 people in 2 years, from 2018 to 2020. This is long before the Scarborough Downs facility has started. Never mind David Miley's program. Never mind the additional amount that they want to put in at the Scarborough Downs type of thing. At that rate, we were already growing at 1,000 a year. Okay, we're going to be up to 30,000, I would say, in probably 3 or 4 years, and which would be an increase of approximately 50% in the town of Scarborough, which, can you imagine, is going to substantially change. What are we going to do as far as schools? What are we going to do as far as fire department? What are we going to do as far as other services that we provide? This isn't going to grow at 200 people a year. This is going to grow at thousands per year, at least 1,000, possibly 2,000 or 3,000. It all depends. That's why the critical part is the town council has to make that determination. How much building are we going to allow in the town of Scarborough? That's what, in my mind, that seems to be the number one issue. As far as I'm hearing from people, they're just concerned. I mean, I've lived in Scarborough here for 45 years type of thing. My wife was a teacher in the Scarborough for 28 years. And right now, as I understand, the schools are pretty well at max, So we're going to have to build schools. We're going to have primary schools, middle schools, high schools, okay? Never mind what's happening at Scarborough Downs and the David Miley and what's already been approved type of thing. And Scarborough is big and has lots and lots and lots of land to be developed. And, I think it's whenever I talk to people in Scarborough, it's all about population growth. That's number one concern. And I know that that's a very difficult thing to control, but it has to be part of one of the major efforts in the town of Scarborough, the town council. It has to be. It has to be, because everything is based on, in a lot of cases, the population growth. So
We have
I'm
a
gonna-
comment here and a related question that says 145 building permits suggests that this is the number of housing units that can be built in a year. Is that true? And what is the maximum build per year?
Well, let me segue into that. We have in our GMO 144, that is a state law minimum. That's what is in our GMO. That's a minimum. There is no maximum. But anybody that wants something that doesn't fit the 144 model must come to the town council and justify the request for public benefit. And I just want to answer Sam's thing, because Sam, very good questions. I hear you. But nothing is really in a silo. And let me give you just a couple facts, okay? Our school enrollment has gone down consistently over the last 5 years. Okay, we're down. I don't know exact numbers, but we are down, not up, down. Let me give you an example of my personal history. Lived off Maple Avenue for 20 years, had a big house, downsized over to Juneberry. That was my wife and myself. 2 doctors out of Maine Med with 2 children bought my house. So there's additional children going to Scarborough schools and 2 additional people. Nothing to do with growth at all. There's migration growth and there's building growth. I'm not minimizing the concern on building growth. I'm very well aware of it. It just, that's why it needs a topic by itself, because there's
Exactly.
so much information
so-
on there.
So I'm gonna wrap this up a little bit, and I'm gonna say, all of this last discussion is certainly more evidence that we really need to have a program that is simply focused on growth. And I would add for myself, in putting together a program like that, we need at least 3 things. We need facts.
Yep.
So that there's not a lot of misinformation and assumptions and all that stuff that happens in the void of information. And some, we don't have all the facts. I know you guys don't have all the facts, but we'll
Right.
have as much as we can. And then we need to have people, I was gonna say both sides, but we need the whole array, because I think we all know there are people who are very concerned and a little bit disturbed about the pace of growth.
Absolutely.
There are also people who are just so excited
Right.
about the potential for the growth and all of that comes with it. So, but we don't often hear from them, except in the leader occasionally.
We do.
Yeah, good. So there's a range of opinions. It's
Right.
not, and then there's the council who has to ultimately manage all of that. And as I understand it, there's also a consultant being hired to help with the projections of what the impact is going to be. Am I
Yeah.
right about
So
that?
we had a consultant. I don't
Oh, you've
know if
already
they're still
got-
on
Yeah.
retainer at this
Yeah,
point.
so that just generates more facts. But we will do our best to put together a program that has all of those elements so that really we can sort out kind of
That's right.
the facts from the opinions and really get a feel of where
I
is
would,
it
I would
coming
love,
from?
you know, I keep coming to different forums like this one.
Yeah.
And I came to the Let's Talk
America.
America, and we did the Counselor Corner Live, and I'm not seeing as much people come out pro
I know.
growth. And
Right.
so I would really encourage to try and see if you might have to like pick them
Oh,
to
no, they're
come.
there. I know
But
some of them.
I just have
very well.
I have
Yeah.
not seen that from the community yet. And
Well, but that's typical. The people who are more vocal are the people who are
Less satisfied.
less satisfied. Exactly.
But we
So-
did a survey, and the survey
so
said we're more,
74%.
and we didn't
2/3.
choose those people
Correct.
because they were anti-growth. We just sent it generally. So I think that's still a leaning and a concern, and there are definitely going to be some people who are comfortable with the growth. I wanted to ask one last question because we got to wrap this up. Rate of growth of Scarborough compared to these other communities. You said it's happening all over. Do we know
Oh,
what our rate of growth is versus Cape Elizabeth versus,
I
yeah?
think the only
Yeah.
community that I think is growing faster than us is Bedford in the area.
Percentage wise, there are several. I don't have them in front of me. That'd be a good fact that we will get.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of population,
Oh,
it
population.
really is like, I think Bedford is seeing more of an explosion than
Right.
and Scarborough is like second
Second. So,
in probably the entire state.
Yeah, so we'll do that. I would,
Yeah.
I'd look forward to that because again, we don't have rampant growth because we have very good zoning. Our growth is consolidated to the Downs,
Yes,
to the Eastern Trail,
right.
to Dunston, and now Sawyer, which is my area. But we don't have all these, what we used to do back in the 90s, have all these single family homes, take a ride out by Holmes Road or Broadturn Road, now try to get
Right.
home. That was not good decision. That was not good planning. Because you have to cost to serve all the way out there. So I think our zoning has solved a lot of that, which will be another thing that we can discuss. And we're not gonna try to sell anybody, because again, we've got a couple things in front. My mind's not made up. I'm glad to hear this. It doesn't surprise me. We understand people are frustrated, concerned about growth in the town.
I
Okay,
think that this is a good time to wrap up, since we said that we would try to end by 7. There are still a couple of questions I know potentially out there, and I think that this is going to be an ongoing conversation. John and Ken were so grateful for the time that you invested with all of us tonight. We had a very focused audience, a really wonderful one, and participants with some really terrific questions. And I want to thank all of you for coming. We will have a recording of this show to share with people who you think might be interested in seeing it. And it will live on the library's YouTube channel, and we will share it probably in a newsletter and on social media. As Dana, as Dana and Janice mentioned, the next topic for Let's Talk Scarborough will be some aspect of this enormous growth issue in town, and we'll get the timing correct. We think it's really wonderful that Council Corner Live is happening, and the last time we did Let's Talk Scarborough, we were scheduled pretty close to Council Corner Live, and it didn't happen on purpose this time, but it happened again that we're very close together. But we will definitely share the information that it's happening and encourage people to attend that. So thank you everybody for being here tonight. Thank you to our interviewers, Dana and Janice, and to our town councilors. And
I just want to
thanks for coming.
I just want to thank the library. You know, a lot of people might think of the library as just a place for books, but I think it's important to remember all the other essential community services that you guys provide to the community to build connections. So I think this is a great forum that just kind of illustrates the other things that the library does that might not be well known to the public, that really shows how important the programming and things are to the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Have a great night, everybody.